My son waited until 312 people were watching before he told them I was losing my mind. The ballroom had been decorated to celebrate the 40th anniversary of Hayes Family Markets. 31 stores. Nearly 2,000 employees. 4 states. A company my wife and I had built from one rusted produce truck and a roadside table covered with peaches. But that evening, beneath chandeliers and enormous photographs of my younger face, my son stood on stage and announced that I was no longer capable of making decisions. He said it gently. That was the cruelest part. My father's health has declined more rapidly than our family expected. His wife, Vanessa, stood beside him with one hand resting supportively against his back. The perfect grieving daughter-in-law. The concerned executive. The woman who had spent the previous 6 months teaching people to look at me with pity. Grant continued. Tonight, for his safety and for the future of the company, Dad has agreed to transfer his remaining authority to me. Applause began uncertainly. A few board members stood. Others followed because wealthy people often stand when they are unsure what else to do. A spotlight moved toward my table. Grant smiled and extended his hand. Come on up, Dad. There was a pen waiting on stage. Beside it sat a leather folder containing documents that would give my son complete control of everything June and I had spent our lives building. I stood slowly. Vanessa had told the event staff to keep the aisle clear because, in her words, I had become unsteady. I walked past store managers who had known me for 30 years. Past cashiers whose children I had helped send to college. Past executives who suddenly found their plates fascinating. My granddaughter Nora was seated near the back. Her eyes were red. Her father had fired her 12 days earlier. He had also warned her that if she attended the gala, she would never be welcome inside his home again. She came anyway. I climbed the 3 steps to the stage. Grant embraced me for the cameras. His mouth moved close to my ear. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. I smiled for the photographers. Then whispered. You should have taken your own advice. Grant's body stiffened. Only for a moment. Then his public smile returned. Vanessa opened the folder. The first page was marked with a yellow tab. Sign here. I picked up the pen. 312 guests watched. Grant looked relieved. Vanessa looked victorious. And that was when I turned toward the audience. Before I sign, I have one small request. Grant stepped closer. Dad, this isn't the time. It is exactly the time. I pointed toward the chairs. There is an envelope beneath every seat in this ballroom. Please open them. Confusion moved through the room. Guests bent down. Paper rustled. Vanessa's expression changed first. Grant turned toward her. Neither of them knew about the envelopes. The board chairman opened his copy. So did the bankers. The store managers. The journalists Vanessa had invited to document my graceful retirement. The first page contained a photograph of Grant shaking hands with the executive who planned to close 11 of our stores. The second contained a summary of nearly $4 million in payments Grant and Vanessa had hidden through consulting companies. The third contained the legal vote removing Grant as chief executive officer. By the time the guests reached the fourth page, my son was no longer smiling. And the evening that was supposed to erase me had only begun. My name is Walter Hayes. I was 71 years old when my son tried to declare me mentally incompetent. To understand how we reached that ballroom, you have to understand what Hayes Family Markets meant to us. Not what it was worth. What it had cost. My wife, June, and I started the business in 1986. We had been married for 4 years. Our son Grant was still a baby. We had $27 in our checking account, $600 in debt, and a green pickup truck that shook whenever it passed 50 miles an hour. Every Saturday morning, I drove to farms outside Cincinnati and purchased whatever produce I could afford. June washed it inside our kitchen sink. We sold it from a folding table beside Mason Road. Peaches. Tomatoes. Sweet corn. Apples when the season turned. June could remember every customer's name. More importantly, She remembered their lives. Mrs. Donnelly preferred bruised peaches because they were cheaper and better for preserves. Mr. Alvarez bought 6 tomatoes every Friday because his wife made soup after church. A young mother named Denise always arrived 5 minutes before closing because that was when her shift ended at the nursing home. June kept one bag beneath the table for her. She charged half price and pretended it was because the vegetables would not survive until morning. That was June. She could turn generosity into something that did not embarrass the person receiving it. The roadside table became a produce shop. The produce shop became a small grocery store. The first store became 3. Then 8. Then 17. By our 20th anniversary, Hayes Family Markets had become a regional company. But June never allowed us to use the word empire. Empires are built for the people sitting at the top, she would say. Stores are built for the people walking through the doors. Every new manager received an old brass key. It did not open anything. June found the first one inside a drawer at our original shop. She tied it to a green ribbon and handed it to our first store manager. This is to remind you that customers trust us with more than money. They trust us with their dinner tables. The keys became a tradition. Managers kept them inside desks. Some hung them near office doors. At every company anniversary, employees who had served more than 20 years wore their keys around their necks. Grant thought the tradition was embarrassing. June called it memory. Our son grew up between grocery aisles. His first job was collecting carts at 12. At 14, he stocked canned goods. At 16, he worked inside the bakery, where he learned that setting a timer and remembering to hear it were different skills. He once burned 48 dinner rolls so badly that June displayed one inside a glass jar labeled Assistant Manager Grant's first major achievement. He hated that jar. I loved it. Grant was intelligent, driven, competitive in a way neither June nor I had been. When he was 10, losing a board game could ruin his entire evening. At 17, he turned a school fundraiser into a business plan and tripled what everyone else raised. At 22, he graduated near the top of his class. I stood in the audience and believed every sacrifice had been justified. That was one of the first mistakes I made as his father. I praised achievement because I understood achievement. Grades, promotions, profit, expansion. Those things could be measured. Character develops more quietly. And quiet things are easy to overlook when the telephone never stops ringing. I missed Grant's 9th birthday because the freezer system failed in our second store. I missed his first varsity baseball game because a supplier threatened to cancel our account. I left his high school graduation dinner early to handle a break-in. Whenever I disappointed him, I attempted to compensate later. A better bicycle. A new computer. A summer trip. Money became the language I used whenever time was no longer available. June warned me. We were lying in bed one night after Grant had gone to college. He thinks he has to impress you to be loved. That isn't true. I know. She turned toward me. But does he? I told myself she was worrying. June worried beautifully. She worried with casseroles, backup plans, handwritten notes, and extra blankets. I kissed her forehead and promised to talk to Grant. Then the holiday season began. We opened another location. The conversation never happened. Years later, I would return to that night more often than any quarterly report. There are moments that do not appear important while they are happening. Only later do you recognize the door you should have opened. Grant joined the company after business school. At first, he was excellent. He modernized distribution, negotiated better contracts, created a home delivery system before most regional competitors took online shopping seriously. He understood numbers faster than I did. He made difficult decisions without becoming paralyzed by them. I was proud. June was proud too, but she watched him more carefully. He knows the price of everything now, she said once. I'm not sure he knows the value. He's young. He's 42, Walter. That's young from where I'm standing. She smiled. Everything is young from where you're standing. Vanessa arrived around that time. Grant met her at a commercial development conference in Chicago. She was polished, clever, and capable of learning what impressed a person before the person realized he had been studied. She had worked in corporate communications. Within 6 months of marrying Grant, she became our vice president of brand strategy. June did not trust her. Not because Vanessa was ambition. June respected ambition. She distrusted the way Vanessa treated people who could not advance her. At company dinners, Vanessa remembered every investor's spouse but never the names of the servers. She praised employees on stage and ignored them in hallways. She referred to our oldest stores as low-value legacy properties. The first time she said that in front of June, my wife put down her fork. That low-value property paid for your husband's education. Vanessa smiled. I only meant from a real estate perspective. June returned the smile. That is the danger of looking at everything from one perspective. For several years, the tension remained manageable. Grant balanced Vanessa's ambition with our history. Or I believed he did. Then June became ill. Pancreatic cancer moved quickly. 6 months after the diagnosis, my wife was gone. There are losses so large that the mind refuses to understand them all at once. It gives them to you in pieces. The empty side of the bed. 1 coffee cup instead of 2. Her coat remaining near the door after winter ends. The impulse to call her when something happens, followed by the memory that there is no number capable of reaching the dead. After the funeral, I stopped going to headquarters every day. The building was filled with June. Her handwriting inside old training manuals. Her photograph in the lobby. Her green coffee mug inside the executive kitchen because no one had the courage to move it. I could handle grief more easily inside our original store. On Saturday mornings, I bagged groceries. Fixed shopping carts. Helped customers carry bags. Sometimes no one recognized me. I preferred those days. For a few hours, I was not a founder or chairman. I was simply Walter, the older man who knew where the batteries were kept. I named Grant Chief Executive Officer 1 year after June died. I remained chairman and retained controlling voting authority through the family trust. Grant hugged me when I told him, "I won't let you down." I know. I believed it. For the first 18 months, the company performed well. Grant introduced new technology. Vanessa redesigned the stores. Profits increased. Business magazines published photographs of them beside headlines about a new generation of leadership. I was happy to remain invisible. Then small things began changing. Employee Christmas bonuses became performance incentives that fewer employees qualified to receive. Full-time positions were divided into part-time shifts. Local suppliers were replaced by national contracts. Grant closed the break room inside our original store because Vanessa wanted the space converted into a premium tasting area. I objected. Grant laughed. "Dad, you can't run a modern company through nostalgia. That room isn't nostalgia. It's where employees eat lunch. They can use the conference room. The conference room has glass walls. So people deserve 15 minutes when they aren't being observed." Grant exhaled through his nose. The way people do when trying not to argue with someone they consider outdated. We are competing against billion-dollar corporations. And we survived because we never attempted to become one. No. His voice sharpened. We survived because you were aggressive when aggression was necessary. You just prefer pretending you weren't. That sentence stayed with me. Partly because it was unfair. Partly because it contained truth. I had fired people. Closed 2 stores. Negotiated hard enough to make suppliers hate seeing my name on a schedule. No company reaches 40 years through kindness alone. But June and I had always believed difficult decisions should cause discomfort. Grant appeared proud when they did not. My granddaughter Nora noticed the change before I understood its size. She was 21 and completing a degree in supply chain management. During school breaks, she worked inside different stores. Not in corporate offices. She wanted to understand the company from the floor upward. That had been her grandmother's advice. Nora had June's habit of seeing people others ignored. She knew which cashier was caring for an aging father. Which bakery assistant wanted to study nursing? Which delivery driver kept dog treats inside his truck for customers' pets? Grant loved his daughter, but her choices frustrated him. He wanted her studying acquisitions. She preferred unloading trucks at 5 in the morning. One afternoon, Nora found me repairing a loose wheel on a shopping cart. She crouched beside me. "Grandpa, can I ask you something?" "You just did." She rolled her eyes. June used to do the same thing. It made my chest ache pleasantly. "Do you know what Meridian Retail Group is?" I stopped tightening the bolt. Yes. Meridian was a private investment company known for purchasing regional businesses, selling their real estate, and cutting operations until the remaining company looked profitable enough to resell. Why? They've had people walking through the Hamilton store. Who told you? I was there. They thought I was a trainee. What were they doing? Measuring. Taking photographs of the stockroom. Asking which departments made the least money. One of them asked how long the meat manager had worked there. "What did you say?" 28 years. "What did he say?" Nora's face tightened. "He said that probably made him expensive." I called Grant that evening. He did not deny meeting with Meridian. They're exploring a strategic partnership. That means nothing. It means we're considering options. Options for what? Growth. Meridian does not grow companies. It grows investor returns. Grant became impatient. "You read 3 articles and think you understand modern finance. I have spent 40 years recognizing when someone wants the building more than the business inside it. We are not selling. You do not have authority to decide that alone." His silence lasted several seconds. "I know." At the time, I believed the words meant he respected the trust. I later understood they meant he had already begun searching for a way around it. The first public suggestion that I was confused happened at a board meeting in March. I arrived 10 minutes early. Grant arrived 20 minutes late with Vanessa and 2 Meridian representatives. No one had told me outsiders would attend. Grant kissed my cheek as though we were affectionate. "Dad, what are you doing here?" "I'm chairman." "Of course." He smiled at the others. "I thought we agreed you were resting this week." "We did not." Vanessa touched my arm. "Walter, you had the doctor's appointment yesterday." "I had my annual physical." She gave the board members a concerned smile. "That's what I meant." The meeting continued. Grant presented charts showing rising costs and slower growth. Then Meridian presented a proposal. They would purchase a 49% interest immediately. Within 2 years, they would gain the option to acquire the remaining shares. 11 properties would be sold and leased back. The language sounded sophisticated. The intention was simple. Meridian wanted our land. I asked how many stores would close. The Meridian representative avoided the question. Grant interrupted. "No closures have been finalized." "That wasn't my question." "Dad, let him finish." "How many?" The representative adjusted his tie. "Potentially between 7 and 11 under the efficiency model." "How many jobs?" "Walter," Vanessa said softly, "these numbers can become overwhelming." The entire table went still. I looked at her. "What part do you believe I failed to understand?" She smiled. "I only mean there are many variables. I understand the variable where 700 people lose their income." Grant closed the presentation. "We'll revisit this when everyone is calmer." "Everyone is calm." He looked directly at me. "No, Dad. You're agitated." That was the moment I first saw the plan clearly. Not the sale. The language. Resting. Overwhelmed. Agitated. Words being placed carefully around me like the first bars of a cage. After the meeting, our chief financial officer followed me into the parking garage. Elena Ramirez had worked with June and me for 26 years. She was 58, practical, direct, and almost impossible to frighten. That afternoon, she looked frightened. "Walter, we need to talk somewhere without cameras." That sentence does not improve my afternoon. I'm serious. So am Aj. We met the following morning at a diner 40 miles from headquarters. Elena brought no company computer. Only a paper folder and a flash drive attached to her car keys. She placed the folder between us. There are payments I can't explain. How many? $2.7 million over 18 months. To whom? Consulting companies. What consulting? That's the problem. The companies had names designed to sound forgettable. Stonebridge Advisory, Blue Harbor Strategy, Vantage Market Solutions. All three received monthly payments. All three used the same registered agent. And that agent had once worked for Vanessa. Does Grant know? Elena looked at me. His authorization is on every transfer. Could his signature have been copied? I hoped so. Then I found the emails. The emails were cautious but clear. Grant approved the payments. Vanessa provided invoices. Some money paid for private travel. Some covered renovations to their home. Nearly $800,000 appeared to have been moved into an account connected to the Meridian transaction. I read each page twice. My coffee became cold. Elena watched me. What are you going to do? I don't know yet. You need to remove him. He's my son. He is also stealing from the company. I understand that. Do you? Her question made me angry. Because she was right to ask it. Parents can identify corruption in every person except their own children. With strangers, evidence is evidence. With family, evidence becomes a reason to search for another explanation. Give me time. Elena leaned back. Time for what? To determine whether he can still stop. And if he won't? I looked through the diner window. Rain moved across the parking lot. Then I will stop him. I hired a forensic accountant named Henry Cho. He had spent 30 years tracing money through divorces, bankruptcies, corporate fraud, and families who believed blood made dishonesty invisible. I also contacted Ruth Kaplan, the attorney who created our family trust. Ruth had been June's closest friend. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she removed her glasses. June worried something like this might happen. I stared at her. What do you mean? She worried Grant would eventually see the company only as an asset. She never told me. She did. Ruth's voice softened. You didn't want to hear it. That hurt. Truth often does when it arrives in the voice of someone who loved the person you lost. Ruth opened an old file. June insisted on adding a stewardship provision. I remember. No. You remember the summary. You never read the complete schedule. That sounds like something I would do. It is exactly something you did. The provision stated that if any family executive attempted to sell controlling interest, close more than 5 stores in 1 year, or use an incapacity claim to seize authority, voting control would temporarily transfer to a stewardship council. The council included the chairman, 2 independent directors, and elected representatives of long-term employees. June had designed it so no single Hayes could dismantle the company alone. Does Grant know? He knows a provision exists. Does he understand it? He signed an acknowledgement 12 years ago. That doesn't answer my question. Ruth almost smiled. No. I don't believe he understands it. For the first time since Elena showed me the payments, I felt something other than grief. Not relief. Possibility. But I still did not want to destroy my son. So I invited him to breakfast. Not at a corporate restaurant. At the small diner where June and I used to eat after closing the original store. Grant arrived 14 minutes late in a suit that cost more than the diner's monthly rent. He glanced at the vinyl booth. You could have picked somewhere quieter. It was quiet when your mother and I came here. That was 30 years ago. The eggs are still good. Grant checked his phone twice before the coffee arrived. I placed copies of the consulting payments on the table. He looked at the first page. Then looked at me. Where did you get this? That is not the useful question. These are confidential records. So you recognize them. His face hardened. The consultants performed legitimate work. What work? Market positioning. 3 companies use the same address. That is not uncommon. One paid for your kitchen renovation. He became silent. One paid for Vanessa's trip to St. Lucia. It was a branding retreat. There were no other employees. We met partners there. Name one. Grant looked toward the counter. The waitress refilled someone's coffee. A truck driver laughed near the window. Ordinary life continued while my son decided how much truth to give his father. It became complicated. That is what people say when the simple explanation is dishonest. His eyes returned to mine. Do you know what it costs to maintain the image this company requires? The company did not require a marble kitchen. Investors expect leadership to look successful. We are successful because people believe we are growing. We are profitable. Profitable is not enough anymore. There it was. The hunger I had helped create. Enough was never enough because I had praised him most when he produced more. I leaned forward. End the Meridian negotiations. Return the money. Resign for 1 year. We will describe it as personal leave. You will receive treatment, counseling, whatever is necessary. And when you are ready, we will discuss whether there is a path back. Grant stared at me. Then laughed once. Not because something was funny. Because disbelief needed somewhere to go. You're serious? Completely. You're asking me to surrender the company because an accountant misunderstood several payments. I am offering you a way to leave without handcuffs. His face changed. For a second, I saw fear. Then anger covered it. You always do this. Do what? Sit there quietly and make everyone feel small. I am trying to keep you out of prison. No. He pointed toward me. You're enjoying this. You finally get to prove I was never ready. That is not what I want. It's what you've always wanted. I spent my entire life trying to become good enough to inherit your precious company. And the moment I changed anything, you treated me like a vandal. I treated you like a chief executive who was spending money that did not belong to him. You spent my childhood using company money to make up for never being home. The words landed with the accuracy of something saved for years. I did not answer quickly enough. Grant saw it. So you know I'm right. I know I failed you in ways money could not repair. His eyes flickered. But that failure does not give you permission to steal. Grant stood. Stay away from headquarters. I am chairman. Not for long. He dropped several bills beside his untouched breakfast. Then leaned close. You should be careful, Dad. People are already worried about you. I watched him leave. That was the last opportunity I gave my son to stop voluntarily. What I did not know was that Grant had entered the diner with a plan of his own. 2 weeks later, Vanessa called an emergency family meeting at Grant's home. Nora was there. So was her younger brother, Caleb, who was 16 and looked as though he wanted the floor to swallow him. Grant had invited a physician named Dr. Miles Benson. I had met him twice at charity events. He was not my doctor. Vanessa offered me tea. Her voice was unusually gentle. Walter, we all love you. Whenever a family conversation begins with those words, something unloving is usually waiting nearby. Grant folded his hands. We've noticed changes. What changes? Forgetfulness. Agitation. Suspicion. Your father accused me of stealing almost $3 million. Nora looked sharply toward him. Did you? Vanessa interrupted. This is exactly the kind of conflict we are trying to prevent. Dr. Benson opened a folder. Mr. Hayes, your family has described several incidents that concern them. My family has described them. Yes. You have not examined me. Not yet. Then you are not currently functioning as a physician. You are functioning as an audience. Grant sighed. Dad, please. Dr. Benson attempted a reassuring smile. No one is making a diagnosis today. We only want you to complete an assessment. With a doctor selected by Grant? I'm qualified. I did not question your qualifications. I questioned your independence. Vanessa placed several documents on the table. These only provide temporary support while the evaluation takes place. What support? Grant would manage your voting authority. My finances? Only if necessary. My home? Walter, nobody wants your home. Then remove it from page 11. For the first time, Vanessa lost control of her expression. Only briefly. But I saw it. They had expected me not to read carefully. They had begun believing their own story. Nora took the papers. Why is Grandpa's house included? It's standard language, Grant said. No. Nora shook her head. This gives you control of everything. Until he's evaluated. By your doctor. Watch your tone. Watch what you're asking your father to sign. Grant's face reddened. You're a college student. You do not understand any of this. I understand that Grandma would hate it. The room became still. June's name remained powerful enough to silence us. Vanessa looked toward Caleb. Why don't you take your brother upstairs? Nora did not move. I'm staying. Grant pointed toward the hallway. Go. No. I am your father. And he is yours. Grant stood so quickly his chair struck the wall. For one terrible moment, I saw the child he had once been and the man he had chosen to become occupying the same face. I stepped between them. That is enough. Grant looked at me. You're turning her against me. I did not invite her. I did, Nora said. Everyone turned toward her. I heard Mom talking to Dr. Benson. Vanessa's face strained. When? Last week. You were discussing how quickly the evaluation could be completed before the meridian deadline. Caleb looked at his parents. What meridian deadline? Vanessa stood. This conversation is over. No, Nora said. It's finally starting. Grant took the documents from the table. Get out. He was looking at me. Nora picked up her coat. I'm leaving too. You live here. Not tonight. If you walk out with him, do not come back expecting everything to remain the same. Nora's hand shook as she fastened her coat. But her voice remained steady. Nothing has been the same for a long time. She left with me. That was the night my granddaughter chose truth over comfort. It was also the night my son decided to punish her for it. Nora stayed in my guest room. The room still contained June's sewing machine and several boxes of Christmas decorations. Nora sat on the bed surrounded by clothes she had thrown into a duffel bag. For the first time since leaving Grant's house, she began to cry. I didn't think you would tell me not to come back. He didn't think you would leave. Is that supposed to make it better? No. I sat beside her. He loves you. He has a strange way of showing it. Yes. So did I. Nora looked at me. That isn't the same. Not exactly. But do not make the mistake of believing love prevents people from causing damage. Sometimes it gives them more opportunities. The following morning, Grant canceled Nora's company scholarship. By noon, Human Resources informed her that her internship had ended due to a conflict of interest. By evening, Vanessa had sent a family message explaining that Nora was emotionally overwhelmed by my decline. She wrote that Grant and she were praying for both of us. Nora read the message twice. Then laughed. It was not amusement. It was the sound people make when crying has become repetitive. She makes everything sound beautiful. That is her profession. How do we fight that? With something she cannot redesign. What? Evidence. Henry Cho's investigation continued. The $2.7 million became $3.9 million. He found unauthorized bonuses, property payments, false invoices, and a private agreement promising Grant and Vanessa an additional $12 million if the Meridian sale closed before the end of the year. The plan was larger than theft. They intended to close 11 stores immediately, sell the buildings, move distribution to an outside contractor, eliminate more than 700 positions. The original store would become a luxury food hall with no union employees and no connection to her history except the Hayes name above the door. Then Henry found something that made me physically ill. June's orchard. 10 acres outside Lebanon where she had planted apple trees after our 20th anniversary. She called it her retirement plan even though she never intended to retire. Every autumn, employees' families gathered there. Children picked apples. June made cider. After her death, we created a community garden on part of the land. Grant had included the orchard in the Meridian property package. The internal documents described it as underutilized non-commercial acreage. I read the phrase until my vision blurred. June's trees. Her garden. The bench where I had scattered part of her ashes. Reduced to underutilized acreage inside a spreadsheet. That was the moment I stopped hoping Grant would remember who he was. From then on, my job was to prevent him from destroying what remained. The midpoint of a life rarely announces itself dramatically. Sometimes it is simply an old man sitting in a quiet office, reading 4 words written by his son, and understanding that patience has become permission. I instructed Ruth to activate the stewardship review. Henry prepared the forensic report. Elena began copying records from secure systems. Nora contacted store employees quietly. Not to organize rebellion. To document what was happening. Managers described pressure to reduce hours while hiding customer complaints. Buyers revealed that Vanessa had forced them to use suppliers connected to Meridian. A warehouse supervisor provided photographs of damaged refrigeration equipment Grant had delayed repairing to improve quarterly numbers. One store manager admitted she had been ordered to remove the brass key from her office because Vanessa considered it inconsistent with the new visual identity. The company June and I built had not disappeared. It had been pushed beneath a polished surface. The people still remembered. And memory, when organized, can become power. Grant struck first. He called another emergency board meeting without informing me. Using statements from Vanessa, Dr. Benson, and 2 executives loyal to him, he claimed I posed an immediate risk to the company. They presented edited security footage. In one clip, I stood inside a warehouse corridor appearing lost. The footage began after an employee had sent me toward a door that was permanently locked. In another, I forgot the name of a new cashier. They did not include the following 10 minutes when I remembered the names of her 2 children after meeting them once. The board voted to suspend my access pending an independent medical evaluation. The vote was temporary. But temporary power can cause permanent damage. When I arrived at headquarters the following morning, my access card did not work. The security guard was a man named Paul. He had worked for us for 19 years. His wife had died the previous spring. I attended the funeral. Now he stood behind the glass trying not to look at me. "I'm sorry, Mr. Hayes. You have instructions." "Yes, sir." "Then follow them." His eyes filled with relief and shame. As I turned away, he tapped the glass. I looked back. Paul removed something from beneath his shirt. An old brass key hanging from a green ribbon. He held it against the glass. Then lowered it again. No words. None were needed. Grant moved quickly after that. My founder's office was emptied. Boxes containing June's records were sent to storage. The green mug disappeared from the executive kitchen. A company-wide announcement stated that I had chosen to focus on my health. Employees were instructed not to contact me regarding business. Then Vanessa announced the 40th anniversary gala. The official invitation described it as a celebration of our history and a tribute to my leadership. Privately, Grant informed the board that I would sign over my authority during the event. He told them the public ceremony would help me accept the transition. "He is turning your own anniversary into a competency hearing," Ruth said. We were sitting inside my dining room surrounded by boxes. "Then we will attend. You could stop the gala legally." "I don't want to stop it." Henry looked up from his computer. "Why?" "Because every person Grant has lied to will be in the same room." Nora understood first. "You want him to reveal the plan publicly." "I want people to hear the story he tells when he believes I cannot answer." Ruth studied me. "June would say you are being dramatic." June enjoyed drama when it was properly scheduled. Nora laughed for the first time in days. But then our plan nearly collapsed. 3 weeks before the gala, Elena was fired. Grant accused her of mishandling confidential information. Security escorted her from the building. Her company computer and telephone were seized. The following evening, someone entered her home office. Nothing valuable was taken. Only an external hard drive containing financial records. Elena called me at 2 in the morning. Her voice shook. "They know. Are you safe? My daughter is here. Leave the house. Walter, the files are gone. Henry has copies. Not all of them." The missing drive contained the clearest connection between Vanessa's companies and the Meridian bonus agreement. Without it, we still had evidence. But Vanessa could describe the payments as poor accounting rather than deliberate fraud. The next morning, Henry discovered that several company servers had been wiped. Grant's attorneys threatened Elena with prosecution. 2 independent directors withdrew from the stewardship review, claiming they needed more certainty. Meridian moved the closing date forward. For the first time, I considered whether we had waited too long. Perhaps patience had not been wisdom. Perhaps it had been fear wearing respectable clothes. I went to the orchard alone. It was late October. Most of the apples had already fallen. Leaves covered the path June used to walk. I sat on the bench near the oldest tree. Part of her ashes rested beneath the roots. "I thought I was protecting him," I said aloud. Wind moved through the branches. There are moments after losing someone when you understand perfectly that the dead cannot answer. You speak anyway. Not because you expect a voice. Because love created a habit of conversation that death cannot completely remove. I should have stopped him earlier. A rotten apple fell several feet away. June would have laughed at the timing. Then she would have said something practical. Probably that regret was only useful if it changed the next decision. My phone rang. "Nora. Grandpa, where are you?" "The orchard." "Stay there." "Why?" "Because I found something." She arrived 20 minutes later carrying June's old green recipe ledger. I had not seen it since before the funeral. The cover was stained with flour and cider. "What are you doing with that?" "It was inside one of the boxes from your office. Grant sent those to storage. Paul called me before the movers arrived. He saved the boxes marked with Grandma's name." Nora opened the ledger. Between recipes for apple butter and cornbread, June had taped a small envelope. On the front, in her handwriting, were the words, "For Walter, if Grant ever forgets what the stores are for." My hands began trembling. June had written the letter 3 months before she died. She explained the stewardship provision in plain language. She named employees she trusted. She described her fears about Grant. But the last page was not about the company. It was about me. "Walter, your greatest weakness is not that you love the business too much. It is that you keep confusing patience with mercy. Mercy requires truth. Without truth, patience only gives people more time to cause harm." I stopped reading. Nora sat beside me. Neither of us spoke for a while. Then she turned another page. Attached to the back of the ledger was a small memory card. "What is that?" "I thought it was photographs." "It isn't." "What is it?" "Grandma recorded board meetings." June had begun recording meetings after her diagnosis because medication sometimes affected her concentration. Among the files was a conversation from 12 years earlier. Grant sat with June, Ruth, and me while the stewardship provision was explained. His voice was clear. "I understand that attempting to bypass Dad through an incapacity claim transfers voting control to the council." Ruth asked him to repeat it. He did. The recording proved Grant knew exactly what he was violating. It also contained his agreement that long-term employees would have voting authority during a disputed transfer. It was not the financial evidence we had lost. It was something equally important. Proof that the Stewardship Council could act immediately. Nora then removed her telephone. "There's more." "What?" "Caleb sent me this." Her younger brother had been quiet during every argument. Everyone assumed silence meant he understood nothing. Children are often treated as furniture during adult dishonesty. Caleb had heard his parents discussing Elena's missing hard drive. He had also seen Vanessa place it inside their home safe. He photographed the drive. Then, while Vanessa and Grant attended a Meridian dinner, he removed it long enough to copy the files. The complete archive now existed inside an encrypted online folder. Caleb sent the password to Nora with one message. "I don't know which side I'm supposed to choose. I only know Mom and Dad are lying." I closed my eyes. Grant's choices were no longer only damaging a company. They had placed his children inside the same war I once tried to keep him from experiencing. Family patterns repeat until someone becomes brave enough to interrupt them. We had 11 days before the gala. This time, we did not waste one. Henry verified the recovered files. Ruth reconvened the Stewardship Council. Paul quietly contacted long-term employees. Elena agreed to testify despite the threats. Independent directors returned after reviewing the recording and the Meridian agreement. The employee representatives voted. 94% supported removing Grant pending investigation. We could have acted privately before the gala. Ruth recommended it. Henry preferred it. Nora asked whether public exposure was necessary. I considered the question carefully. "I don't want to humiliate your father. He humiliated you. That doesn't make humiliation justice." "Then why wait?" "Because Grant has spent months telling employees, investors, reporters, and family members that I am confused. If we act privately, Vanessa will tell them he stepped aside to care for me. She will turn accountability into another performance. The truth needs witnesses." Nora looked uncertain. "Is that what Grandma would want?" I looked at June's letter. "No. What would she want?" "She would want us to solve everything over soup." Nora smiled faintly. "But she also believed people should clean the mess they made. So what are we doing?" "We are giving your father one final opportunity to tell the truth." The gala arrived on a cold Saturday evening in November. Vanessa had transformed a hotel ballroom into a museum of our family history. Large photographs showed June and me beside the original produced truck. Old advertisements played on screens. The rusted roadside sign had been restored and placed near the entrance. Vanessa understood the commercial value of history even while helping Grant erase everything that history required. My invitation listed me as Founder Emeritus. I had never agreed to the title. Nora arrived with me. She wore one of June's green scarves. When Vanessa saw her, the welcoming expression disappeared. "You were not invited." Nora looked toward the ballroom. "My name is on the family table. That was printed before recent events." I stepped closer. "She is attending with me." Vanessa lowered her voice. "Walter, please don't create a scene." "I have no intention of creating one." That was true. Grant had already created it. I only intended to let people see it clearly. Before dinner, employees approached me cautiously. Many had been told not to discuss company matters. They asked about my health instead. "I'm well." "Are you sure?" "I'm old, Marion." "That is not the same as disappearing." She smiled through tears. Marion had been a cashier for 33 years. Around her neck hung an old brass key. Paul had coordinated the envelopes. Hotel staff loyal to Vanessa believed they contained anniversary photographs. They placed one beneath each chair. Inside was a concise evidence packet prepared by Ruth and Henry. Nothing exaggerated. Nothing emotional. Dates. Payments. Contracts. The stewardship vote. And a copy of June's letter with private sections removed. The evening began with a video tribute. My younger face appeared on the screens. June laughed beside the produce table. Grant appeared as a child holding a burnt dinner roll. The ballroom laughed. For a second, I heard June laughing with them. Memory can be cruel that way. It gives the dead back for half a heartbeat and then removes them again. Grant delivered the main speech after dessert. He spoke beautifully. My son had always been an excellent speaker. He thanked employees. Praised customers. Describe the company as a family. Then his voice softened. Family also means accepting change. Vanessa moved beside him. Grant continued. My father has experienced increasing health challenges. He has moments of confusion. Like many proud men, he has struggled to admit that he needs help. A sympathetic murmur moved through the room. Several people looked toward me. Grant placed one hand over his heart. We have handled this privately because Dad deserves dignity. But tonight he has agreed to transfer his remaining authority so the company he loves can move forward safely. Applause began. Vanessa dabbed one eye with a tissue. I wondered whether she practiced that in a mirror. Grant extended his hand. Come on up, Dad. I walked toward the stage. Nora watched. Elena sat beside Henry. Ruth stood near the back with two independent directors. Paul remained beside the ballroom doors. The people who knew the truth were scattered throughout the room. Grant believed I stood alone. He hugged me for the cameras. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. You should have taken your own advice. Vanessa opened the folder. I picked up the pen. Then turned toward the guests. Before I sign, I have one request. Grant's smile tightened. Dad, this isn't the time. It is exactly the time. I pointed toward the chairs. There is an envelope beneath every seat. Please open it. Paper filled the room. Vanessa looked toward the event coordinator. The woman shrugged helplessly. Grant leaned toward me. What did you do? I allowed people to read. The first page showed Grant with the Meridian executive. The second summarized the hidden payments. The third contained the stewardship vote. The fourth showed the planned store closures. The fifth displayed the sale of June's orchard. Whispers became voices. Voices became questions. Reporters began photographing pages. Board members turned toward Grant. Store managers looked at one another in disbelief. Vanessa reached for the microphone. These materials are fraudulent. Ruth spoke from the back. No, they are not. Every person turned. She walked toward the stage. I am Ruth Kaplan, counsel for the Hayes Family Stewardship Trust. The records have been independently verified. The Employee Council has voted. The independent directors have voted. As of 6 o'clock this evening, Grant Hayes was suspended as Chief Executive Officer. The ballroom erupted. Grant grabbed the microphone. You cannot do this. Ruth looked at him. You agreed to the provision 12 years ago. I did not understand. The screens behind us changed. Nora had given the signal to the technician. June appeared on the screen. Thin from treatment but still unmistakably herself. She sat inside the old boardroom. Grant sat across from her, 12 years younger. Ruth's recorded voice explained the provision. Then Grant spoke. I understand that attempting to bypass Dad through an incapacity claim transfers voting control to the council. The video stopped. Grant stared at the screen. Vanessa stepped away from him. Only half a step. But I noticed. People reveal loyalty through distance when consequences arrive. Grant turned toward me. You recorded me? Your mother did. His expression changed. For the first time all evening, the performance disappeared. He looked like a son hearing his dead mother's voice. I took the microphone. I gave Grant an opportunity to return the money and step aside privately. He refused. I did not plan this evening because I wanted revenge. I planned it because the lies were public. And public lies require visible correction. Vanessa interrupted. Walter is not well. He has been manipulated. He has been manipulated by disgruntled employees and a confused college student. Nora stood. The room turned toward her. Vanessa's expression hardened. This does not concern you. It concerns 700 families. Nora's voice shook, but she continued. It concerns Grandma's orchard. It concerns the money you used to renovate your house. And it concerns Caleb, who had to copy evidence from your safe because he didn't know how else to stop his parents from lying. Grant looked as if she had struck him. Caleb did what? He knows. Nora's eyes filled. He knows everything. That was the first moment Grant appeared truly broken. Not when he lost the position. Not when the money was revealed. When he understood his son had seen who he had become. Vanessa moved toward the edge of the stage. Grant turned. "Where are you going? This is your family's dispute." The words were so cold that even she seemed surprised by them. Grant stared at her. "Our dispute? You authorized the payments. You created the accounts. Because you told me to." Her voice rose. "You were the chief executive. You wanted the sale." There, in front of 312 witnesses, their marriage became an argument over who deserved more blame. I lowered the microphone. This was no longer accountability. It was spectacle. And I had no interest in allowing it to continue. "Enough." My voice carried farther than I expected. Both of them stopped. I looked toward the guests. "This company's private investigation will continue. Relevant evidence will be provided to the authorities. No one should mistake tonight for a trial. It is a correction." Then I looked at Grant. "You have two choices." His eyes remained on me. "You can cooperate. Return what can be returned. Tell the truth. Accept the legal consequences. And begin the work of repairing your relationship with your children. Or you can fight. If you fight, every document goes immediately to federal investigators, civil attorneys, lenders, and every journalist in this room." Grant's voice sounded small. "You planned all of this?" "Yes." "For how long?" "Long enough to give you several opportunities to prevent it." His face twisted. Then years of anger finally broke through. "You love this company more than you ever loved me." The ballroom became silent again. There are accusations a person can dismiss. That was not one of them. Because it contained the oldest wound in the room. I placed the microphone on the table. When I answered, I spoke only to my son. "I loved you badly." Grant's expression changed. "I thought providing for you was the same as being present. I praised you when you achieved something and assumed you understood I loved you during the ordinary days too. I missed moments I could never purchase back. And whenever you were hurt, I gave you something instead of giving you myself." Grant looked away. "I helped teach you that money was proof of love. That success was the only safe way to earn approval. I am sorry for that. I will carry that failure for the rest of my life." Then I stepped closer. "But I did not teach you to steal. I did not teach you to threaten your daughter. I did not teach you to use illness as a weapon against your father. And whatever I failed to give you does not excuse what you chose to take." Grant's eyes filled. He looked toward Nora. She was crying silently. Then he looked toward the empty chair reserved for Caleb, who had refused to attend. "What happens now?" "That depends on whether you tell the truth." He stood motionless. Then slowly removed the chief executive pin from his lapel. He placed it beside the unsigned transfer documents. "I'll cooperate." No one applauded. I was grateful. Some moments become smaller when people clap. Vanessa did not cooperate immediately. She left the ballroom through a service corridor and hired separate attorneys the following morning. For 3 weeks, she attempted to blame every transaction on Grant. The emails did not support her version. Neither did the copied files from the safe. Meridian withdrew from the transaction before midnight. The company's lenders froze the disputed accounts. Grant resigned formally on Monday. Vanessa was terminated. The board appointed Elena interim chief executive. Her first act was restoring every employee whose hours had been cut as retaliation. Her second was returning the break room to the original store. The legal consequences took longer. They always do. Grant pleaded guilty to financial fraud and breach of fiduciary duty. He returned property, surrendered bonuses, and sold the house he and Vanessa had renovated using company money. He received 30 months in a minimum security federal facility. Vanessa fought longer and received a harsher sentence after investigators proved she had created the false consulting companies. Their marriage did not survive. That was not a victory. Only another consequence. Nora returned to university using money from June's education trust. I offered her a position at headquarters after graduation. She refused. Good, I told her. She looked confused. You were testing me? No. But your grandmother would have. Nora chose to work for a food distribution nonprofit for 2 years. She said she wanted to learn how hunger looked outside a board presentation. That sentence would have made June unbearably proud. Caleb moved in with me temporarily. He barely spoke during the first week. He believed copying the files had sent his father to prison. No explanation could remove that guilt immediately. So I did not attempt to talk him out of it in one conversation. We repaired shopping carts, pruned trees at the orchard, ate breakfast without forcing words. One afternoon, he asked, if I hadn't copied the files, would Dad still be home? Yes. He looked down. Then I did send him away. No. You revealed what he was doing. The action sent him away. Evidence only prevented them from remaining hidden. Caleb wiped his eyes with his sleeve. Do you hate him? No. Why not? Because he is my son. And because loving someone is not the same as protecting him from consequences. 6 months after Grant began serving his sentence, I visited him. I had postponed the visit twice. Not to punish him. Because I did not know which version of myself would enter that room. The angry chairman. The disappointed father. The guilty old man who kept replaying missed birthdays. Grant looked thinner. Without the tailored suits and executive posture, he looked younger. Almost like the boy who once burned 48 dinner rolls. We sat across from each other at a metal table. For several minutes, neither of us spoke. You came. You are my son. I wasn't sure that still mattered. It matters. It does not erase anything. I know. Grant looked at his hands. I keep thinking about Mom's orchard. So do I. I told myself it was just land. I know. I knew it wasn't. That is different. He nodded. I knew what it meant. I just needed it to mean less than the deal. That was the first completely honest sentence my son had given me in years. It did not heal us. But it created a place where healing might eventually begin. I'm sorry about Nora. Tell her. She won't answer my letters. Keep writing. What if she never answers? Then keep writing without demanding a reward. Grant looked at me. Is that what you did when I was young? No. I answered honestly. I usually bought something. He laughed once. Then covered his face. The laugh became a sob. I waited. There are moments when touching someone is comfort. There are others when it becomes an attempt to stop emotions because they make us uncomfortable. Grant needed to feel the full weight of what he had done. So I remained seated. When he lowered his hands, his eyes were red. Do you think I can ever fix this? No. He stared at me. You cannot fix the past. You can only stop repeating it. That is less satisfying. Most true things are. I visited every month after that. Sometimes we discussed the company. Usually we did not. We talked about books. Caleb's school. Nora's work. The Cincinnati Reds disappointing both of us in familiar ways. Ordinary conversations. The kind we should have shared decades earlier. Grant wrote to Nora for 11 months before she responded. Her first letter contained only 3 sentences. I am not ready to forgive you. I am willing to believe you may become someone different. Keep proving it when nobody is watching. Grant read the letter until the paper softened along the folds. 2 years after the gala, we celebrated the 42nd anniversary of Hayes Family Markets inside the original store. No ballroom. No chandeliers. No journalists. We pushed several produced displays aside and arranged folding chairs near the bakery. Employees brought food. Children ran between tables. Someone found the glass jar containing Grant's burned dinner roll. It looked worse after 4 decades. Elena remained chief executive. The board had offered the position permanently, and she accepted after forcing us to remove the word interim from every document. Under her leadership, the company reopened relationships with local suppliers. The 11 threatened stores remained open. The orchard was transferred permanently into a community trust. No future executive could sell it. Nora had returned from her non-profit work. She did not become an executive. Instead, she created a program connecting stores with community kitchens and food banks. She worked from a small office beside the original break room. June would have approved of both choices. Caleb was preparing for college. He wanted to study forensic accounting. When he told me, I asked whether he was certain. I like finding things people think they hid. That ability appears to run in the family. Grant had been released 3 weeks earlier. He attended the anniversary quietly. No stage. No title. He wore jeans and an old green work shirt. Several employees avoided him. Others greeted him cautiously. No one owed him comfort. He understood that. Near the end of the evening, I found him inside the stockroom stacking canned tomatoes. You know we have employees for that. He looked over his shoulder. I'm one of them. Technically, you are still completing orientation. I worked here before you had an orientation. And look how that turned out. Grant laughed. A real laugh. Not the polished sound he once used in boardrooms. Elena had agreed to hire him as a warehouse assistant. No management responsibilities. No financial access. No use of the family name to avoid ordinary work. Grant accepted every condition. He placed another can on the shelf. Do you think people will ever trust me again? Some will. Some won't. That's fair. Yes. He wiped dust from his hands. Do you trust me? I considered lying. Parents often confuse encouragement with dishonesty. No. Grant nodded slowly. But I'm watching. He looked at me. And you believe I can earn it? I believe trust can return. It doesn't return because someone misses it. It returns through 1,000 small decisions that no one applauds. Grant looked toward the stockroom door. Nora stood there. Neither of them moved. Their relationship was still fragile. Several weeks earlier, they had shared coffee for 20 minutes. It ended awkwardly. But it happened. Nora held something in her hand. An old brass key tied to a green ribbon. Grant stared at it. I found this inside Grandma's ledger. Nora stepped closer. She wrote your name on the ribbon. Grant did not reach for it. I don't deserve that. No, Nora said. Not yet. She placed the key on a shelf between them. But Grandma didn't believe a person was only the worst thing he had done. She also didn't believe forgiveness meant pretending. Grant's eyes filled. What am I supposed to do with it? Leave it there. For how long? Until you know. Nora walked away. Grant continued staring at the key. I placed one hand on his shoulder. Your mother would have enjoyed making that more complicated than necessary. He laughed through tears. She learned from you. No. I learned from her. We returned to the celebration. Before everyone left, Elena asked me to say a few words. I refused twice. The employees ignored me. Someone placed June's old green mug inside my hand as though it were a microphone. I stood near the bakery with children sitting on the floor and shopping carts lined behind the chairs. 42 years earlier, June and I had wanted enough money to keep the electricity connected. We never imagined 31 stores. We never imagined investor meetings. We certainly never imagined forensic accountants. Life becomes larger than the plans used to begin it. I looked at the employees. Many wore brass keys. Some had remained with us for decades. Others had been hired that month. People call this a family company. I used to like that phrase. Then I watched my own family nearly destroy it. A few people laughed nervously. I no longer believe a company becomes a family because a family owns it. It becomes a family when people accept responsibility for one another. Family is not automatic loyalty. It is not silence. It is not protecting someone from the consequences of harming others. Sometimes the most loving thing a family can do is refuse to participate in a lie. I looked toward Grant. He did not lower his eyes. That mattered. I made mistakes as a father. I believed providing was the same as being present. I believed patience was always mercy. I believed avoiding conflict could protect people. I was wrong. June understood something I learned too late. Love without truth becomes permission. Truth without love becomes cruelty. We need both. No one applauded immediately. Then Marion, the cashier who had worked for us for 33 years, began clapping. Others joined. The sound filled the old store. Not like the uncertain applause at the gala. This felt different. Smaller. Honest. After everyone left, I remained inside the produce section. The lights had been lowered. An employee pushed the final row of carts through the entrance. Grant stood near the stockroom. Nora helped Caleb gather plates. For a moment, I could almost see June beside the peaches. Not as a ghost. As memory. Healthy. Laughing. Telling me the tomatoes were arranged incorrectly. I had spent years believing the company was what we built together. I finally understood it was only one part. We had also built a son. Imperfectly. We had helped raise grandchildren. We had created relationships that could be damaged, repaired, tested, and changed. Buildings could be sold. Companies could fail. Names could disappear from signs. But the way people treated one another traveled farther than any brand. Grant approached. "Dad?" "Yes?" "Do you think Mom would forgive me?" I looked toward the old photograph near the entrance. June stood beside the produce truck with one hand on her hip. "I think your mother would make you work for it." Grant smiled sadly. "That sounds right. She would also bring you food while you were working." "That also sounds right." He looked toward the stockroom. The brass key remained on the shelf. What if I never become who she thought I could be? "You won't." Grant stared at me. "None of us become exactly what someone else imagined. That is not the assignment." "Then what is?" "Become someone honest enough to keep changing." We turned off the final lights together. Outside, the old Hayes sign glowed above the entrance. The same name that had once become a weapon between us. Grant stopped beneath it. "Do you think I deserve the name?" I looked at my son. Older. Humbled. Still unfinished. A name is not deserved once. It is earned every day. Grant nodded. Then walked toward his car. Not the luxury vehicle he once drove. A used sedan with a dent near the rear light. He did not appear embarrassed by it. That was a small thing. But lives change through small things. I remained beneath the sign after everyone left. 42 years earlier, June and I stood beside a folding table hoping strangers would purchase enough peaches to pay our electric bill. We thought success meant reaching a point where we would no longer be afraid. We were wrong. Success creates new fears. Losing what you built. Watching your children misunderstand it. Discovering that the thing intended to protect your family has begun tearing the family apart. The answer was never more control. It was truth. Truth about money. Truth about ambition. Truth about the ways parents fail their children even while believing they are sacrificing for them. Truth about the difference between loving someone and allowing him to continue causing harm. My son tried to take my company by convincing everyone I had lost my mind. I could have destroyed him privately. I could have humiliated him for the pleasure of revenge. Instead, I gave him the truth in a room large enough that he could no longer escape it. That truth sent him to prison. It ended his marriage. It cost him his title, his house, and the trust of his children. But the truth also gave him something lies never could. A chance to become different. Not every family receives the chance. Some people defend the lie until nothing remains. Some parents protect their children from consequences until the children become incapable of protecting anyone else. Some wounds never close. Ours had not completely closed either. Forgiveness did not return everything to how it had been. It created something new. More cautious. Less innocent. But honest. The brass key remained on the stockroom shelf for another 14 months. Grant passed it every day. He never touched it. He worked early shifts. Cleaned loading areas. Covered for employees who needed time with sick children. He attended counseling. He sent part of every paycheck into a restitution account even after the court requirement had been fulfilled. One snowy morning, Nora arrived before opening. She found Grant replacing a damaged shelf. No cameras. No executives. No one to impress. She watched him work for several minutes. Then took the brass key from the shelf. Grant stood. "Are you moving it?" "No." Nora tied the green ribbon around his neck. He did not speak. Neither did she. Some reconciliations are too fragile for speeches. Later that morning, Grant found me inside the produce aisle. The key hung against his work shirt. I looked at it. Then at him. "Nora?" He nodded. "Do you think I'm ready?" "No." Grant laughed. "I thought you might say that. Your mother gave keys to remind people of responsibility. Not to reward perfection." He touched the key. "What does this one open?" "Nothing." "That seems inefficient." "It opens a conversation." "That sounds like Mom." "It does." We stood together while customers moved through the aisle. A young mother compared prices. An older couple argued cheerfully about which apples to buy. A child attempted to hide a chocolate bar beneath a bag of carrots. Ordinary people purchasing food for ordinary tables. The reason the stores had existed from the beginning. Grant looked around. "I forgot what this place was for." "Yes. I don't want to forget again." "Then keep coming back to the floor." "Why?" "Because numbers become dangerous when you forget they represent people." Grant nodded. Then noticed the child hiding the chocolate. He walked over, crouched beside him, and quietly pointed toward the security camera. The child returned the bar immediately. Grant brought him a free cookie from the bakery. When he returned, I raised one eyebrow. "What? You rewarded attempted theft?" He corrected his mistake. "That defense sounds familiar." Grant smiled. "I had a good teacher." I wish I could say everything became easy after that. It did not. There were still difficult holidays. Nora still became quiet whenever Vanessa's name was mentioned. Caleb still carried guilt. Grant still encountered employees who would never forgive him. I still woke some nights wondering whether I had caused part of what happened. The answer was yes. I had contributed. That was not the same as being responsible for his decisions. Two truths can exist together. I failed my son emotionally. My son committed crimes. Acknowledging the first did not erase the second. Holding him accountable for the second did not release me from confronting the first. That is what families often avoid. We search for one villain because one villain makes the story easier. Real families are more complicated. One person may cause the greatest harm while everyone else contributes silence, fear, pride, or denial. Healing begins when each person stops waiting for someone else to confess first. June understood that. She understood almost everything before I did. I still visit the orchard every Sunday. The community garden has expanded. Employees bring their children. A small plaque rests beside the oldest apple tree. June Hayes believed no table should be empty while another has more than enough. Sometimes Grant comes with me. We prune trees. Repair fences. Talk when there is something to say. Remain quiet when there is not. The silence between us feels different now. It no longer hides the truth. It gives the truth room to breathe. On the anniversary of June's death, Grant placed his brass key beneath the plaque. "Why are you leaving it?" "I don't need to wear it every day." "What changed?" He looked toward the garden. "I finally know what it is supposed to open." "What?" "Me." I laughed. "That is extremely sentimental. I'm getting old." "You are 52. Everything is old from where Nora is standing." "That sounds familiar." We sat on June's bench until the light began fading. For the first time in years, I did not see my son as the child I had failed or the executive who had betrayed me. I saw him as a man still becoming. So was I. That may be the final lesson June left us. A family is not a finished thing. It is built repeatedly. At dinner tables. Inside difficult conversations. Through boundaries. Consequences. Apologies. And ordinary decisions made when nobody is watching. My son once stood before 312 people and told them I had lost my mind. He believed age had made me weak. He believed love would keep me silent. He believed the company belonged to whoever controlled the paperwork. He was wrong about all three. Age had not made me weak. It had made me patient. Love did not require silence. It required truth. And the company never belonged only to the people whose names appeared on legal documents. It belonged, in the only way that mattered, to everyone who had kept its purpose alive. The envelopes beneath those ballroom chairs exposed my son's lies. But exposure was not the real ending. The real ending happened years later inside an ordinary grocery aisle. A humbled man wore an old brass key. His daughter chose to stand beside him again. And his father finally learned that accountability and love were not enemies. Sometimes accountability is the most difficult shape love can take. It does not always feel kind. It may close doors, remove titles, expose secrets, or allow someone you love to face consequences you could have prevented. But protecting a person from every consequence does not save him. Sometimes it only gives the worst part of him more time. So when someone asks whether I regret what happened at the gala, my answer is complicated. I regret waiting. I regret the years I praised Grant's success without asking what it was doing to his heart. I regret every time I replaced presents with money. I regret that Nora and Caleb were forced to become braver than the adults around them. But I do not regret opening the envelopes. I do not regret saving the stores. I do not regret protecting 700 families. And I do not regret refusing to let my son's lie become the final truth about either of us. People often believe a dramatic revelation is the moment everything changes. It is not. It is only the moment hiding becomes impossible. Change happens afterward. Slowly. Quietly. Through 1,000 choices no audience will ever see. That is how companies are rebuilt. That is how trust returns. And that is how families survive. Truth.